This is the DRF Players Podcast. Here are your hosts, Peter Thomas Fornatel and Jonathan Kinchin.
Hello and welcome to the DRF Players Podcast. This is show 355, the August 3rd, 2018 edition. I'm your host, Peter Thomas Fornatel, back with you from the little house on the east side. Muggsy, the handicapping Labrador, at my feet, and on my left, not just metaphorically as usual, on my left, literally sitting in the kitchen at the little house on the east side. It didn't look good for a while, folks, and we'll hear the whole story, but he's made it in from the planet Texas. He's the people's champion, Jonathan Kinchin. JK, what's up?
Man, I projected to be doing this from a car somewhere on a highway traveling from somewhere south of here. I projected to be doing this from one of 4 airports, D.C., Charlotte, or even back home at DFW. So it's been I've been doing this standby thing for a long time, and last night was the most hopeless I've ever felt in the entire battle. There's always like a hotel you can stay at and a flight you can catch the next morning. None of those things seemed apparent. I was prepared for the drive from Buffalo. I reached out to Matt Bernier and was like, hey, when are you coming from Boston? Like, I was ready for anything.
You managed to get it done. You said, I like this story. Even this morning, you put yourself at a pretty huge dog to be able to make it when you woke up just a few hours ago.
Yeah, I was 6-1. The computers came and bet late. They bet me down to 5-1. But I was it was dire, and I hit a parlay, like 6-1, 6-1. For like a racing metaphor. They let me loose on the lead. Somebody took out the other speed, but it happened at the brakes. There's no DQ. I got on. It worked out just fine.
Tremendous stuff. You arrived here just minutes ago for this edition of the show ahead of what looks to be a very exciting Whitney weekend.
I was reminded of something we should have said on the lifestyle show.
Do tell. You
cannot Uber from Albany. They have a deal with Lyft, so you cannot
from
Uber
Albany Airport.
Yes, from Albany Airport, you cannot get an Uber out of there. You can only get Lyft out of there. So don't be standing there saying, because I've had people tell me the Uber,
no cars available.
Right. They won't pick you up from there. Get Lyft out of there. If you're an Uber person through and through, you can Uber back, but you got to get a Lyft out of Albany Airport.
And you can probably get just as long as we're doing the lifestyle thing, you probably get a promo code of some kind. Just send a message to JK. There's probably something where he can give you a coupon and you can each get $10. He loves to pinch his pennies, so you can do that to get your wheels up here to Saratoga and join us. Not only is this weekend going to be great, JK, but we've got a real amazing week of action ahead of us. We just got to get this weather to cooperate a little bit. The good news, today looks on and off and wacky weather-wise, and through the night it's going to be wacky. But it sure looks to me like by the time we run our first race tomorrow, it should be decent over there. Now, are they going to take some races off? Quite possibly, but it looks to me like the stakes races and just the general weather for tomorrow should be okay. Sunday looks like it's going to get really hot, but we can deal with that. We have tricks to deal with the heat. And then next week we've got the sales on Monday and Tuesday. Do you project to be seen at those?
I do project. I'll be there at the sale on Monday, and then
buying anything.
Yeah, I'm going to buy something. I'm a big 0.5% guy now. So I got we got 0.5% along on value. We're working on a deal right now. The Prince of Druthers, the Prince of Keeneland.
He's been downgraded, by the way. The Prince of Keeneland. We've decided there is a place on earth he likes more than Keeneland, and it's Druthers right here on Broadway in Saratoga. Catch him in there for lunch, sometimes lunch and dinner, lunch, dinner, and a nightcap. You'll probably see the big man hanging out there.
I tweeted yesterday, the Prince of Keeneland, a.k.a. the Prince of Druthers. Keeneland liked the tweet.
They don't mind sharing their royalty.
No, but Jake got a deal done to get a 2-year-old, a young prospect that was running at Prairie Meadows, and I've convinced Jake to let me have 0.5%. I don't know if he's going to let me or not, but he'll at least let me tell people I own 0.5%.
There you go. I mean, that's half the battle.
Absolutely. I think the horse is going to be pretty good, though, so I think he did a good job finding that one. Going to go to George Weaver. And
excellent.
Yeah,
well, we'll wait until we have a little bit more news, but that definitely sounds like a story to follow up on, especially if you're involved. You're 0.5%. You're 2 for 2 as an owner, JK. So maybe there's an idea that you're a little bit of good luck.
Yeah, I mean, all I do is win grade ones, essentially.
One was a listed stake, to be fair. But hey, I think Long on Value still in town. Going to miss the Troy, unfortunately. That was originally part of our action-packed weekend, but it sounds like he's doing okay. We should probably clap eyes on the horse, while he's up here.
Yeah, maybe tomorrow morning if the weather's not too dicey.
Ooh, that's a good point. We'll have to see. The usual go see the horses ritual might get interrupted by weather. But that's not the end of the exciting stuff. Sales Tuesday as well. Sounds like we may make an appearance there or may have some other fun stuff going on. And then Wednesday, of course, this is kind of the last call for this, listeners. We have the premiere of the pilot for the World Horse Players Tour, taking place in that same arena where they're going to go from $1 million yearlings to us. A little bit of a come down in the world, but it should be very entertaining. And we hope, as a listener to this program, you are cordially invited. But we are doing we are doing RSVPs. So if you're interested, send me a tweet, send me a DM at Looms Boldly. Hit me up at the podcast email, podcast@drf.com.
There's a chance. We're working on it, and I think it's going to happen, but I don't want to say it yet. I think we're going to be able to live stream it.
Very cool.
So that while we're watching it in the pavilion, if you're on the West Coast or in Indiana or the Plata, Texas, for crying out loud, you'll be able to watch it with us and enjoy it. We're excited about it, excited about letting everybody else see it. It's I told our producer, Michelle, the other day, I haven't told you this, I wish that I could get one of those devices from Men in Black and wipe my brain, because we've seen it so many times that I can't – it's hard for me to watch it now because I know what's going to happen next, so I can't – it's hard to get into the story because I already know the outcome. In fact, I know what the next line is.
Right. You could so we could do that old thing, the Rocky Horror Picture Show. We could start just shouting out lines, pointing out the goofball in the background, stuffing his face like George Costanza during one of the shots. We could be doing that, but we're not going to do that. We want people to enjoy it, and since we do not have an eternal sunshine of the spotless mind situation, we'll just have to try to put ourselves in that headspace. Then that's not even the end of the excitement next week, because not only the New York bred sale later in the week at Phasing, but also we have the contest. Saratoga. We haven't talked about it this much on this show. I've talked about it a bunch on Out of the Gate and in the columns. But after a couple of years in the wilderness, when they converted to live bank but put the events in the middle of the week, I think it's fair to say the event for a couple of years there lost a little bit of its luster. Last year, for example, top contest players, including yourself, in Saratoga for the contest, didn't even play. This year it's different. They've done something very smart. For the first time, moving the contest to Friday, Saturday. They're keeping it 2 separate events, which I think has its advantages for touring players, visiting players, especially those in the quest for NHC tour points, for example, have now 2 opportunities to play with the $1,000 event Friday, $2,000 event on Saturday. I think they're going to turn over a lot more money than they ever did before. I think it's going to be a big deal. And speaking of the NHC Tour, JK, after your fine showing last weekend at Del Mar, you got to be somewhere on that leaderboard, right?
Yeah, I think 60, something like that, something along those lines. It's last year. God, you got me. I swear, someone tweeted, there's a reason why I do it, and he was right. I'll go to the tweet. I'm agreeing with you, but then disagreeing with you, and we'll come back to that.
It's just an or. You can give me any fancy semantic logic you want. Chomsky himself could explain it. It's or. Anyway, keep going.
So anyway, I'm in contention-ish. Obviously not to win the whole thing, but you have to have a big outright score. I've got one that's okay, that's good, the Santa Anita thing. But my goal is top 20. If I can get in the top 20, that'll be great. And then if I can sneak into the top 10, then that can even be better. But
so chance to make some money. I don't know, man. If you were to win outright a contest like one of these Saratogas, I know you don't play that much You don't play that much online in those events these days, but I think you could find yourself in a position where it only makes sense to chase it. Not only, I mean, I'm saying you'd need an outright win, like absolute number one in a big event for this to make sense. But at that point, there's money on the line and emotional value. Nobody's ever won this thing twice.
Right. Paul Sherman says it best, that you don't choose the tour chooses you. It hasn't chose me yet.
Right. I think that is a Randy or Ross Gallo line, actually, that Paul frequently quotes. But yes.
If it does, if I get an outright win, it's starting to do so, and then I will pursue it in earnest with online play and so on and so forth. But, I'm going to keep playing in some live events. I'm going to play in both Saratogas this weekend. Obviously, the BCBC. Woodbine, I think. Keeneland.
Oh, yeah, come to Woodbine. That's going to be a blast.
Santa Anita, I'd like to try to get there. I don't know if it's a conflicting weekend or not. Hawthorne usually has one the Friday after Thanksgiving, which is always a fun one to fly up for the day and back. It's a straight flight from Austin. So I'm still going to play in quite a few with a lot of opportunities to get some more. We'll see what happens.
It'll be fun to follow along. Speaking of fun tournament stories and people from the planet Texas, it's not posted yet, but you got to check out the piece today. Did you hear about the excitement at the Paddock Bar yesterday?
I heard a little bit, but I'll let you tell the story.
Ghostbusters Chris got engaged to be married. Lovely young woman from Australia named Jordan. When I first heard the story of how they met gaming online, her in Australia, him in Texas. Frankly, I was terrified that I was worried whether or not she existed when I heard the origins of the story. But she arrived in the United States. She is very real and wonderful, and they got engaged yesterday. And it's not only a fun story to read about them and the beginning of this unusual love affair, but he also has some very interesting comments that I think horse racing as an industry should listen to about the way that the online culture in gaming works versus how it works in racing, and some interesting ideas about maybe trying to do more to create an online community to help grow fandom beyond, we have the sketches of it with Twitter, but his point about Twitter is if you're somebody who knows nothing, it's very hard to find. You won't necessarily find the people who are worth listening to, and obviously you could be put off. Obviously, that's the case in gaming too. Sort of famously, some trolly weirdos in that space. But it sounds like it's just they make it somehow easier to find your people, and maybe there's a way racing could do that too.
Yeah, it's tough on with Twitter. It's tough to get to interact if you're a novice player or you're just getting involved. Sometimes it's hard to interact with the people that you're looking to interact with. I'm not going to name any names, but when I first got started, there'd be guys that I would have questions to. I'd reach out to via Twitter or Facebook or whatever way I could try to find them, and you get nothing, right? And I always found that to be kind of annoying. It's like, look, man, I'm reaching out to you because I admire what you do, and then you just ghost me like nothing, like not even some like, hey, thanks for reaching out.
In racing, they might not know how to really use Twitter. Might be the problem.
Right. But I think the gaming community is like, I think the gaming situation, and like you mentioned, is you're tying these players together, and not to let an idea that we've shared together over, out, but I think it would be cool for some of the online contests that we're involved in or playing, if there was a way to kind of chat inside of those. I know that Derby Wars had that for a little bit, but it wasn't the most intuitive interface. But a way to kind of chat and get to know people in the midst of having the games. I remember in the poker world, that was something that happened a lot. Is people in the bottom left corner, going back and forth. I think that's an interesting aspect.
I think what will make it work, and gosh, from my mouth to God's ears when I say this, is if you could expose the idea of tournaments to a younger crew, something like, I don't know, a television show that would potentially bring people to the party. And then if you have like-minded people who are interested in playing tournaments because they saw it on TV, say, that's a group of people who I think you could maybe get yapping.
I haven't told you this yet, and I shared it with Michelle yesterday. I've been excited to tell you. It's fun to tell you stuff fresh sometimes. A lot of times we have these conversations already, and we just kind of do them again. One of the things that we talk about all the reasons why we made our contest win only, right? One of the things that I think we don't talk about enough is that by making it win only, not only are we making it easier to follow, it's not, it's leaderboard changing, action, better for TV. we are inviting new players in and not making it look so complicated.
Right.
It's just simple. Like, you just pick one horse, and anybody can get that lucky on one day betting 2,000 on a 7-1 shot and hit that horse, and now suddenly they're in the lead. We made the game more approachable, where if you were to bring a camera over my shoulder when I'm punching tickets in a live money contest, you're lost.
Yeah.
And you're intimidated because it's so much, not because I'm right, but because it's just so much that if you're new to the game, it's a lot to swallow. One horse to win is not a lot to swallow.
No, I think that's definitely where that idea came from. Hopefully it'll help expose what's so cool about the sport to another group of people. We'll learn a lot more soon on that front. But I thought it was an interesting element of that article for sure. Heard some funny stories about you over at the track. There was a particularly good one. My buddy Huck, his first interaction with you on Kentucky Oaks Day. I'll chime in on his side of the story if I need to, but I'm curious to hear. What really went down from the JK point of view.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing him. I haven't seen him since that moment, so it's going to be that moment of like, are we cool? And we'll see what. Okay.
No pushing and shoving this time. We don't need another.
No, it wasn't that. There's etiquette at the racetrack. And there's a lot of different things we talk about that's etiquette. Don't show me your ticket. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you see me working, double check that I'm good to chat. Keep the bad beat stories to a minimum. There's a lot of things. One of the other things is that, and it doesn't have to be a dollar amount thing, although the dollar amount thing magnifies the problem. If you were with a group and you have an opinion and your opinion is right and their opinion is wrong, you do not boast about it unless it was invited to boast it. Like, unless it's like a situation where like that person was being aggressive or annoying to you prior, and then if you want to be boastful after you were right, I get that. But what happened was we were talking in a circle and about the Oaks, and I was talking about how much I like Paradise Woods for all the reasons that I liked her, and he thought she was going to bounce. So he used...
Was it Paradise Woods or Abel Tasman?
Paradise Woods.
Okay, he told me Abel Tasman. He doesn't even have the horse right.
My point exactly. He was spread in the race. So when Paradise Woods didn't run well, after being in a suicide duel with my Miss Sky Warrior, or my Miss Sky Warrior, or whatever her name was, the horse that Paco was on. She was the 10 horse that day. I just can't remember the horse's name. The Paradise Woods folded and Abel Tasman won, and he used Abel Tasman in his pick 4. I was playing in the contest and bet 5,000 to win on Paradise Woods. And after the race was over, he was chest banging at I told you the horse was going to bounce. I told you the horse was going to bounce. And
this version of the story is a little bit different. Not only getting the horse wrong, but so it wasn't that he was celebrating his own win, because that's obviously within reason. I mean, if you're two people in a box, you have a different horse, you're still allowed to cheer, obviously. You're allowed to say yes when they hit the wire. I thought that was what was perturbing you.
No, I was perturbed by, told you she was going to bounce.
Gotcha.
Maybe I'm paraphrasing, but something along those lines. And
then what did you say to him? This was my favorite part of the story. Even he thought this was funny.
Oh, I'll let you. I don't remember it. I'm sure it was obnoxious, but I'll let you say it.
I believe your response to this was something to the effect of, "Get out of here with your $2 bets," which is horribly obnoxious. Even you will admit.
I know, it was terrible. I'm just saying, like, if someone loses. It's wrong in general to bang on your chest when someone loses. Like, I wasn't being a jerk about my opinion that she was going to run well. I just was confident. I thought she was going to run well. And so that was pretty much it. I mean, that we kind of left it at that. There were some choice words and we moved on, and that was kind of the end of it. So when I see him, I'll give him the 5 and the my bad, but I'm secretly going to be hoping that he says my bad too. But we'll see. We'll see
how that goes. More drama at the paddock bar today. Then there was another funny story. This one, little bit of a different dynamic, but you told me about the guy on the plane today. I want you to tell that. I didn't even let you finish the story because I wanted to hear the rest of it.
Well, I mean, I'm very proud of the show and how many people listen. And
podcast or
the podcast.
Okay.
Yeah, how many people listen and often when we go places and racetracks, people always come up and say really nice things about it. And forgive me, I've gotten used to enjoying hearing people tell us that the show is good. No, This
is why I was so upset when Michelle Wilrich on the way something like, Jonathan, it took you a little while to get down the voiceover thing, but you got that great. And all the while, even when that wasn't going well, you had it. You had that sling special. I'm just like, stop. His ego is big enough. We do not need to hear this.
Well, you plucked me from obscurity. I remember you told me that at one point. And so this guy sitting behind us, and it's always exciting when you're flying to a racetrack place and you find you lock eyes with the guy with the form on the plane or whatever. They're sitting right behind us. He's looking at the form, talking about racing. He's looking over my shoulder at one point, and he sees me looking at some leaderboard graphics for the show. And he asks me like some of the people in the show's name, and I was like, oh, well, Garrett Skiba and Nick Tamaro and Tony Zhou, and I started naming all these people, and he goes, oh, I've heard of some of those guys on Twitter, or I've seen some of those guys on Twitter, and I thought to myself, like, well, if you've seen them, you haven't seen me and PTF? Like, what about our show? And I confessed that I was bummed out that he wasn't a listener to the show, but it's not like you can say, like, hey, man, I have this podcast. You should listen to it.
I will sometimes just slide that in, just like not for ego recognition, but just as like grassroots marketing. Like, hey, if you're interested in more racing stuff, we do this little podcast, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes I take that attitude, and then other times I go the opposite direction, especially, somebody comes to the door during the show, and I have to like put on mute and go over there and shoo them, and the mailman or whatever. I'm doing this podcast. It's kind of a big deal. So I can go I can play it up or I can play it down depending on the social situation. So that's how we roll with that. But you made it to Saratoga. You're here for how long?
I am here for a while. Last year, remember, I had to leave in the middle to go pick up Austin.
Didn't you? I remember you like essentially no showing this weekend.
Yeah, I didn't. I didn't make it. I didn't make it here.
Inside joke.
Yeah, I didn't make it here, so I ended up coming. I think I got here Sunday, and then I stayed until Tuesday. Went back and got Austin. Something crazy like that.
That's nuts, even by your standards.
He's going to meet me here Sunday, so there's no reason to leave. I'll be here till probably next Sunday or Monday.
Pear Bear's been a regular. She's been at the track every day. She's been here, as she informed me she wanted to be. Might be in danger with the weather, but she was a little upset the other day. We took her over there at 5 o'clock, and she says, "Daddy, how many races are left?" And I said, "Oh, there's still 2 left." She says, 2? Oh, I got one of the 5-year-old wines. I was secretly very proud. But yeah, I think over under on hot dogs that get consumed in the next week here is about 20 and a half. So.
I talked about hot dogs. I talked about he's upgraded a little bit. He'll do a cheeseburger now.
Nice.
Which is a weird thing to say. The kid will do a cheeseburger. But he also sometimes will order broccoli.
Wow.
He orders water sometimes, like all the time, and it's like weird. They're like, "Do you want something to drink?" He's like, "I'll just have water." They look at me like, "What?"
Do you think we'll have a chance this week to get out on the boat with Captain Colleen?
Did Captain Colleen text you back?
She did. Captain Colleen she's sailing the mighty seas over there at Saratoga Lake. People should check this out, but not until we get ours booked, because we don't want you to take our spot. But this tiki tour boat thing they do on Saratoga Lake, you can bring a cooler. You fill it up with beer. You can bring cocktails, whatever you want. You cruise around the lake at about 4 miles per hour, and then they can drop you at one of the local restaurants.
Well, I don't know about that. Remember?
Well,
you remember?
Tell the story. But yeah, there are restaurants at the south end of the lake. We asked them to go to the north end of the lake, and JK nearly turned this 4-mile-an-hour tiki boat into the Titanic with his faulty navigating. But
no, Captain Colleen, I was a little bit concerned she wouldn't be working there anymore after she ripped the top off trying to cross under that bridge. But glad to see that she shook that off and she's still employed.
Harvest and Hearth. If we get there, we'll probably have to drive. We had some listener questions I wanted to get to. I had reserved the right, and if we do everything else we have to do, I may whine. Because, and I think when you said the thing about bad beat stories to a minimum, that made me realize that I probably shouldn't do what I was originally going to do, which was go into great detail about how I bet on 3 separate horses yesterday who were a mile the best, all of whom lost, when great riders, let's just say, didn't have moments that will be remembered on their Hall of Fame plaques.
Is this one of the rides? I didn't watch yesterday. I was airport losing. Is this one of the rides that caused our buddy Nick Tamro to tweet, "It was going to take someone trying to lose on hard study for him to do so"? His rider proved the perfect partner in that regard.
It's so awful. I'm one of the biggest Johnny Velasquez fans in the world, but it was probably one you would want back, I would say. There were just a few. There were several doozies yesterday. None better than the one in the featured allowance race. It's hard. These guys, they're making split-second decisions. An ambulance follows them to work. I'm not the type to get upset about it. And I'm not saying it's their fault at all. It is what it is what I'm trying to say. But it's just funny when at the end of the day you can go back and say there were 3 times I was on the best horse and failed to cash a ticket.
From the famous story that I feel bad we still have not given the people, but the famous Jerry Bailey story that the Piper tells. One of the lines he uses every time is his buddy says in the midst of it, "I can yell at the left fielder at the Yankees game," and I think that's. We have to not go too far with that.
It's different. Aaron Judge, he's right field, but anyway, he doesn't get followed to work in an ambulance, and I think that changes the dynamic.
Yeah, absolutely. And what happened to Victor the last few weeks?
With the I'm glad you brought that up.
And we've seen
send well wishes out to him. It's very moving scenes of video and really. Life-threatening experience that he had. That's something that I try to keep in mind and at all times. It does sound like he is on the road to recovery, though.
Yeah, it's always those things are always hit and miss when you have an injury to the neck, but it sounds like he's going the right direction. And there's a really touching interview. If you know someone who's a jockey basher to the extreme, send him to Twitter, let him see the video, and just realize what these guys put on the line every day. Yeah, it's okay to criticize a bad mistake from a professional athlete that makes a significant amount of money, but try to keep it at that and not get so, they'll never make it personal to a certain extent. These guys are risking their lives.
Well, and also, just as a horse player, and this can't be said enough, you need to, and I learned this from Mike Maloney, more than you even think you need to do when something goes wrong, you need to look in the mirror and figure out what you could do better. I have a story of talking about one of the Brits from the other day. I didn't tell you this. I gave him – we were just brainstorming about the races, and there was an opportunity to Dutch. There was like a good-looking 3-horse win Dutch opportunity in England on a U.S. race. So I'll give them horses sometimes, and they'll, whatever, buy me some pints when I come over, or, give me some small share or whatever. So that kind of situation. And – I told him the numbers of the horses. And so here I was. I thought the race is over. One of the numbers wins. I'm thinking, oh, my God, this is going to be a great – it was like crazy. It was a 75 cent on the dollar return on what I thought were like the 3 most likely winners. It was terrific, theoretically terrific investment. And after the race, I talked to him, and he were texting, and he's like, oh, mate, I just counted – they were the names only listed in the market, not the numbers. I just put the first horse, the third horse, and the fourth horse. I didn't realize that there was a scratch, so we actually missed the bet. Oh. Now, that's something that I think a lot of horse players used to blaming jockeys, blaming trainers. You blamed, he fat-fingered it, I took it as, you know what? I should have known. 75% return on those 3, that was too much. I should have said, hey, take a look. Are we sure we got this right? And I think that's the attitude as a horse player you should have, whether you get, sometimes you could say, I did everything right, I was just unlucky, and that's fine. But if you're going to go to the next level of criticizing and trying to, rather than putting the blame on somebody else, just think about it. Think about, was that really good value on the horse, on the moon again? Was that really a good price? I still think it was, and I think that's a case where I got unlucky in that race, and I think she's going to come back at that stake at the end of the meet and do what C. Khaleesi did after getting the exact same trip down at Belmont back in 2016, and then went and, won the Beverly D so well. I think it's going to be that situation. But so you try to take the positives you can from it, and you say, okay, well, here's one for the watch list. That was a bummer. My meet isn't working out to as well as I hoped it would so far, but we've got how many days left, and let's just focus on that and turn the page and try to get better as horse players instead of wasting time blaming other people.
Yeah, to me, it's like traffic, right? Like, you live in a city your whole life. You learn to build in cushions and you build in the unexpected. You know, if you're late to a plane in a city you've lived in forever because you got stuck in traffic, like you should have left 15 minutes earlier. And I look at handicapping the same way. Is like, yes, there could be a bad trip. You could have a rider do something dumb. You're supposed to be able to try to zig and zag and predict when that's going to happen and leave yourself a 15-minute cushion. And sometimes if you don't do it, blaming them is going to retard the process. Like, focus on what you need to do to make it better.
Exactly. That's just what's going to make you a better player. And the answer is that almost every single time. All right. So we did end up talking about that I said I wasn't going to, but I'm pleased with that. All right. Here's one that came in. I just love the fact that this questioner's last name is Bukowski, and I can't help but wonder if there's any relation. I'm sure if the Bukowskis had people up in Toronto. But let me parse the question. This Canadian person follows European racing and American racing, and was interested to hear a contrast between the way that British or Irish people look at form and the way that USA people look at form. I'll ask you I have a perspective on it, but I think you do too, having followed Ask It the last couple of years and handicapping these horses when they come over for the Breeders' Cup. What do you think the biggest difference is?
I think the most simple part of it is that we are more pace figure-oriented racing handicappers and horse players, and they are more class-oriented. Like, that horse was in this race with that horse, so this horse is that good.
Yep.
That deal. I think we do that less than they do it. And then, I'm sure some guys do sectional times and final times, but I think we're more of a figure-based type. And I'm throwing this question back at you.
Yeah,
Who's
please.
more trip-oriented, us or them?
I think that's a thing that's pretty similar. The difference being, I think we have some better data to help. We just have so much more data.
And I also think that because our pools and our market is so different, we look at races differently because, if you're placing a bet there, you're mostly betting to win in most
Almost
situations.
Entirely, yeah.
We can do some really creative things to find a horse to run third and to hook him up with this and to run some multi-race bets and so we look at the races, I think, differently from a handicapping standpoint of what we're trying to take out of that race, where they're just looking for who presents the most value from the win standpoint. So I think it's different there as well.
That's another good point. In terms of what we've learned or what I've learned from them, I think JK hit one of the big things. Form handicapping is very important, and I think underutilized, especially in American turf racing, where a lot of the figures you see are projected and based on the class level anyway. And by looking at who beat whom and looking at live races versus dead races, now that's a very easy thing to do with a tool like DRF Formulator, where you can go in, look at an old race, look where they all ran the next time, look at through the buyer view, look at the figures they've been running. You can really get a sense of races that are productive versus not productive, races where you recognize the names and see real quality and know that, the the two first level allowances might have very similar figures, and one might be a race where I'm looking to bet almost everything out of it, and one might be a race where I'm looking to bet against anything in it. I feel like that's something I picked up more from the Brits and the way that they look at form.
Yeah, and we've talked about this on the show too previously. And in TQ, Tom Quigley's _corner on Twitter, he tweeted yesterday, I believe, a really cool fact. And I'm curious. I actually didn't look to see how the horse ran, so after I say it, I'll come back to it. But essentially, where's it at here? He pointed out a horse who was coming out of a race at Golden Gate, ran yesterday in race 5 at Del Mar. The 11 horse, this town was 20-1. It was a field of 8 ran in the last race at Golden Gate. 7 of them had returned. 6 of them earned a buyer of 70 or above. Like, when you can find that key race where you have figures, that a figure improvement to suggest that was a key race, I think those are really strong. And so to your point about them kind of looking at the form of a race, I think it's really important. I'm gonna while you follow up, I'm gonna pull that up to see how that horse ran. I'm curious.
Yeah, take a look and see how the thing ran. But that's right. We have this advantage, and in 2018, and with tools like Formulator, we have a new way of looking at this old concept, popularized, as far as I know, by Steve Davidowitz, called the key race. Back in the day, you would look at a key race as a race that produced multiple next out winners. these days, I still look at that. I still want to know, oh, 3 of them came back to win. That still means something. But you can find subtler key races by doing the exercise that TQ was pointing out there, where you can just see what figures the horses ran. And sometimes they're running, but it seems like they're all running. And I think
52-1 ran 7, but the horse was 52-1.
Right.
Obviously, in a spot, probably shouldn't have been in.
Yes.
But doesn't mean that that's still not a live race. The race is clearly live, and I think training your brain to see those patterns and to see those situations and to make that part of your process when you're evaluating whether a race was good or not, it's still a great lesson and something you can definitely make some money on down the line.
And the other part of Mr. Bukowski's question, I thought this was really interesting about the way that the game is changing in Europe related specifically to climate change and warmer temperatures and firmer ground at places like Ascot. Basically, the question was, what could climate change mean for racing in the future? And in the short term, I think you're going to see a lot. I think that Ascot form is going to translate to the USA better than it ever has before. Not only are trainers and owners over there looking at our racing, seeing the money available and attracted for that, to now be able to see, hey, my horse actually is okay competing on firm ground. It just, to me, gives more and more reason for the cross-pollination between racing in England and Ireland to a lesser degree, but England certainly Ascot at the top of the list, and a big race meeting like the Breeders' Cup. And hopefully, I mean, obviously, I'm not saying it's a good, I'm not saying climate change is a good thing in general, but if you're just trying to think of it in terms of what it means for racing, I think that I think that you're going to see a lot more races run on firm ground over there, and to me, that's going to probably mean more form that's going to translate. Obviously, that's not the only thing. It's not just the ground that's going to make a horse excel here. It's also the ability going left and tight turns. But some of those horses are so good, even if they don't want, if they can tolerate left and don't necessarily want tight turns, we see the way they come over here and run. Hopefully, as we go on in time, we'll see more and more of them. Doesn't look like it's going to be the case at Arlington this year, unfortunately.
Yeah, I haven't even looked. Is there nothing coming for the million?
Didn't look. I mean, there's a couple things that we got to look and see what the final list is. Maybe it was almost, I don't know if what I saw were sort of like the final horses being considered or just the at the moment likelies. Because if it was the at the moment likelies, and I had a horse who I was anywhere on the fence about, I would have sent. It just didn't look like the kind of contingent that is going to mean that it's going to continue. That meeting's going to continue to be a stranglehold for the European side. But we'll have to see what happens. But thinking more about a meet like the Breeders' Cup, I'm just hoping we're going to see some heavy hitters, Alpha Centauri without parole. I'm hoping horses like this who have proved they can run on that stuff are going to, and in some cases with Alpha, are better on that stuff, the ability for them to come over here and show their thing.
No bin battle for the million?
I'd have to look. I
just saw like an old list of maybes.
Gotcha.
So
Ben battle's all right.
Rhododendron I saw as a maybe.
I'd like to. That would be great.
Circus Couture, you know that horse?
I don't know that. It's a French horse, I'm guessing.
Yes, Deauville. This is like there's a list, an old list of maybes. I don't know if
gotcha. Yeah, I feel like the updated list. I feel like Deauville was one of the bigger names, and we know that Deauville's okay.
And then the big horse just showed up here, Devisaderos.
There you go, Devisadero.
I don't think that.
You don't like him in that spot?
No, you know who I'd like in this spot if this horse runs there, and the name is listed. I don't know if he's running or not. Is Robert Bruce?
Yeah, Robert Bruce.
We talked about Manitoul, and we talked about Spring Quality. Robert Bruce won that race where those two horses came back and ran well. I mean, Manitoul didn't run well last weekend, but
in the prep for the
we had mentioned that race might be better than it looks on paper. So
that's a good thought. Obviously, we will go into great detail about the Arlington races. That's 1 week from today we'll be doing that, right? Isn't that going to be
from right here?
Probably sitting in the same spot.
We're going to probably need to have some more refreshments, but we'll
dude, it's 11:30 in the morning. Give me a break.
I've had a rough day. rough 24 hours.
Will you be able to? Let me ask you, how much will you be able to focus on Arlington with the Saratoga contest going on?
It's I'm a couple spots guy anyways in live money contests, so I look at a race really quick and I move on, so it doesn't take me that long. I will say this. I was thinking about my rough day yesterday. Travel etiquette. If you have a dog, like, that's cool, but, like, your dog doesn't...
Mugs is looking at you funny.
No,
I'm just saying,
she
did not... I swear she showed her teeth for a second there.
On the plane, your dog doesn't need to lick my arm.
Are you with the person who has the dog?
No, I'm sitting on the plane next to some girl who's got her dog in her lap, and I'm watching The Office on my iPad. I fall asleep for a second, and I get woken up by a dog licking my arm.
Oh, my God. You are such a whiner. It's unbelievable. Let the canines be. Let the canines be. This isn't a major airline problem like ailjacking. This is some small stuff here.
If your dog's never handicapped a pig for you, he doesn't need to be licking my arm. Muggs can lick me. She's a handicapping lab. She can do whatever she wants, but the other one's got to watch out. All
right. Well, before we get to the Saratoga contest in Arlington next weekend, we have a fine slate of racing at Saratoga on Saturday. Whole load of stakes. There's one early on, isn't there?
It's the De La Rose, yes. One of our favorite horses in here. I think this got you a facial haircut before? Or
No. This was one of the. I think we've decided in legitimate on the racetrack head-to-heads. My all-time record with you is now 1-95, and this was the one. The great Uni. Finishing ahead of Proctor's Ledge when I think they ran about 6th and 7th at Keeneland last fall. But yes, so Uni holds a special place in my heart for plus that making you look like a 1970s relief pitcher has been worth the other 94 losses. But yes, she's back, and it's a pretty interesting race. You got On Leave in here. Another Chad Brown runner. So some very interesting stuff going on. Thundering Sky. Who did you come up with?
Yeah, I'm going to use the other Chad. I'm going to let you pronounce it, the 5-horse.
Precious.
There he goes. Precious. These first-time U.S. horses for Chad are always tricky. And when he puts them in a race with another one of his good ones, I think it says a lot about the horses.
What do you mean by that? That's really interesting. Do you think that's a bad sign for the European? Or
no, it's a good sign where he brings this horse over and spots them in a race where he has another good horse. When you have the group of owners that he has, they always, and Baffert has the same problem, Todd too. You're going to run into your trader's other horses, and that's fine. But you don't want your trader to spot your horse and then embarrass you.
Right.
If you get beat by your trader's other horse, that's cool. But like for Chad to put this horse in here for Peter Brandt and let Uni blow her doors off, that's not something that these guys feel good about. A lot of these guys that own these horses have big egos. I'm not saying Mr. Brandt does. I don't know. I'm just saying you don't want that to happen. So
like you're the 0.5% with the big ego. You think some of these guys with 100% might have bigger ones? Is that what you're saying?
I don't want to get embarrassed out there. I got all my friends in town. Told my own part of the horse. No, but I think that horse will run big there. On Leave's a tricky one. I've always thought she's really talented, but she always finds herself into some kind of trouble, some kind of trip. She's always pace compromised, but she's always dangerous too. So she's one that I would consider. I wouldn't leave Uni off, but I'm going to try to build a lot of my stuff around the 5, the
Precious. And we were just talking about Ask It Form translating. Now, granted, not the best race, 7th beaten 6 1/4 there, but you look at some of those names who finished ahead, and you know that she can act on the ground, and this team. They have such an amazing eye for bringing in horses from over there. They don't have to have form this good to win at the grade 3 level. You know what I mean? Absolutely. I know you get one who really fits at the group level over there. Got to figure a major threat for all the marbles. But I mean, I'm not going to let Uni beat me either. Those two for me.
100%. Yeah, those are the ones that I need.
All right, let's move on. We'll skip. There's a couple of interesting maidens, which will be fun. Maybe we'll do some DRF living from the paddock for those on Saturday. It seems like I finally have my computer working and my internet working up here again. You listeners will tell me. Hopefully we didn't have any dropouts during the show today. But let's go on to the Grade 1 test, one of the signature races of the early part of the Saratoga meeting. This one, JK, I haven't had a whole lot of time to take a look at. Time Form has the pace fast with Mia Mischief making the top over Classy Act. Do you think it will be one of those from the front end, or do you think it might be something from off the pace to get the job done?
Yeah, no, I think this is one of those spots where if I was playing in a contest, if I could be alive to those two or start off with those two, I think they have this thing over a barrel. Classy Act and Mia Mischief both were in the midst of a fast pace in the victory ride. Classy Act stuck around a little bit longer than Mia Mischief, but Mia Mischief has shown so much class in her, especially the one in the 8 bells ran against Talk Boob to me, who ran really well in Indiana, I think was where she ran. So those are the two that I want. I think that both of them won't ding dong like that. I think one of them will probably.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that. I know you're a big time form fan, and when you see that pace coding, the fast pace. Now, normally that does send me looking to the middle of the pack or the back of the pack for a horse who can finish. But I will say this, when you're looking at a sprint race, a good quality sprint race especially, and there's only 2, not 3 up there, to me that makes a huge difference. The idea that somehow in racing, Muggs gives a nice shake, when there's only 2 speeds out there, they kind of have a way of making it not play as fast as it might look on paper as opposed to when there's 3 or more. Do you agree with that? And how do you use that time form coding when you see it?
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of it you have to figure out more of what's going on, right? Like who's involved, the jockeys, the trainers, what happened in the previous races. These 2 horses were neck and neck in the victory ride at Belmont, and it didn't work out for either one of them. So when they pop away from there, whoever gets the jump, the other one's going to just sit off. Why look the other one, the only other horse you have to beat, why look them in the eye in the first quarter mile, right? Let them go, sit off of them, and then just see who's best in that situation. So for me, it's going to be one of those with all the other ones chasing. I guess separation of powers is going to be interesting because it's Chad, and she ran so well here in the spinaway. I mean, she's not the spinaway, but on debut, and then ran well in the Frazette, obviously winning that race. But her comeback race wasn't overly impressive. She got a setup in the victory ride by the 2 fillies that we're talking about, kind of leaning on. If I had to pick one, I'd pick Mia Mischief for the sake of picking one for the show, but I'll be alive to both of them equally.
All right, talking about the signature races of the early part of the meeting, I always love it. It happens every few years when I get a Whitney Day birthday. Tomorrow, turning, how old am I? 46, I think. And very excited to see this race. Hopefully this weather's going to cooperate for us. I actually like a horse in here, and you probably know him. You've beat me in head-to-heads with him multiple times, and but I think it's an interesting spot for my old buddy, Good Samaritan.
I'm not a fan. Not that he's not a cool horse, and I wouldn't love
too plotty for you. As we've said before, the JK horse playing is a no-closer zone most of the time.
Yeah, not that he's not a quality animal that I wouldn't like to own 0.5% of. But I just think that this situation, he's just too plotty. The pace isn't going to be super fast. He's the type of horse that needs either lesser or a really good setup. So
I just don't think it's not a great grade 1. I think this might be the lesser that he needs. It's part of why I like him.
Yeah, but I think diversify as a real horse. Mind Your Biscuits is a talented horse. I don't know if he wants the 2 turns. It could be misleading by how he ran in the Met Mile, but he ran well enough. He's one that I would definitely use and consider. But, I think I'm going to lean on Backyard Heaven here. I think Backyard Heaven was –
What's your excuse for the last race?
That it was hot outside.
And the track was cuppy.
Cuppy. Yeah, that's what they say. It's hot, cuppy. I just think he's a talented horse. A lot of times when you get a big figure out of a horse, a big kind of comeback race, which you got in the Ali Sheba when he won by 4 with a 1:29 time for him. Now he runs in the mile and 8 Foster, and it's just a different situation. He doesn't run well. I feel like good trainers learn something in those situations. He's still only run 5 times in his life. So Chad will probably figure out more about him. I think we'll get a better performance out of him here. Like I said, these guys, especially Ken Ramsey, Chad Brown, they don't want to be embarrassed on these big stages. So if they're bringing a horse back that has this weird kind of running line where it seems like there's no excuse, but they show back up in those top spots on the big stage, I'll give him another shot here. If he lets me down here, he'll be done to me. I won't ever give him another shot.
He might just be done if he doesn't run well
Absolutely.
Here. It's a great question. The way my handicapping has evolved, I'm at a stage in my horse playing where I'm really not liking to draw lines through races without if I have a reason. I'm happy to go back and evaluate the horse on the previous race, but I just worry. And if the 9-2 was the number, I would agree. You will probably want to reach for him there. But given the connections, I mean, I just feel like something shorter could be on order, and that would make me scared. I agree with what you're saying about a horse that has to be considered technically, and if you're making a value line, you certainly wouldn't have the horse. I certainly wouldn't have the horse any longer than 6-1, and maybe shorter than that. But let me get your take on when it's good or when it's acceptable to draw a line through a race versus wanting to see some current form.
Well, I think there's only so many things that we have. There's so many angles that are available to us, right? And usually you can find them on the pages of the DRF or in the form, time form, pace figures, workout reports, articles that we can get from all the guys that we have covering the races. But here's the thing. There's so many things we don't know. You know, the horse bumped his head coming off the van. Stepped on a rock, had a little foot bruise. There's so many things that could have happened we'll never know the answer to. So I'm not going to continuously give a horse an excuse. But I'll give him one. I'll give him two and allow him to kind of find a way to sneak back into the mix.
How much does price factor into your willingness to forgive? I think for me that's almost the number one factor. With a favorite, I'll try to beat them off that bad race with no excuse every single time.
He's 7-5. I'm trying to beat him, but he's not. He's a much better price than that. So
your pick in the race for official purposes?
Backyard Heaven.
Okay, Backyard.
Backyard Heaven. I do think Diversify's going to run well. I'm going to use Diversify. I think that, and I'll use him as if he's the 7-5 favorite on the morning line. Irad rides this horse really good. He finds that perfect spot in the jockey's dilemma with this horse, where he runs a little bit, but he saves a little bit. But he's never, in his last two races, he finds that perfect spot. And even back to the Jockey Club Gold Cup last year, he finds that perfect spot in the pace, velocity, energy disbursement spectrum. He's always in the right spot there. So I'm gonna, I think he's got a great shot. I think Backyard Heaven offers a little value.
Let's talk a little bit more about Mind Your Biscuits coming to this off that huge run. So unlucky not to get it done at the Met Mile. I get why they're here, but thoughts on actual chances, stretching out a little bit further, going around two turns. Where in this race do you think he'll be situated?
It's just weird for me when you see a horse win a Grade 1 going 6, and then we're looking at a Grade 1 at Saratoga going 1 mile and an 8th. He is talented. He ran well in the Met Mile. I would think that I fear they're going to take him back a little bit, try to make one run. I think that if I had the horse, I'd put the thing on the lead or sit right off of Diversify where now you're going to just kind of gallop him along there, but you keep him close enough, and you still have a little bit of finish as a late running sprinter. But late running sprinter, late running distance, it does that. Those
such different animals, such different animals, and it worries me. And I then try to start thinking about a narrative of, well, do they think he's? Apologies to our live listeners for some technical difficulties there. And Craig, if you're listening, there you go. You got that muted. We had the echo going for a second. But I think we're back now. We were talking about the Whitney. We were talking about Mind Your Biscuits chances. I think we lost some of that. I was a little skeptical about the late running sprinter stretching out. JK said he was still going to include and that it was going to be a spread race for him. And then we segued to a head-to-head. JK, surprisingly, another horse I feel like you haven't really cottoned to in the past, McCracken, you offering him against Good Samaritan in a head-to-head. And I'll take that in a bid to go 2-95 against you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. 2-95. Like I said, if I get beat, it's just a birthday gift. I want, try to make you feel better in front of you. I know you got a big following out there in the world, and I'd hate to beat you on your birthday, and there might be another opportunity, but I was a little nervous there wasn't going to be one, so I just went with this one.
I love Good Samaritan. I'll go down swinging with him. Let's move along to the next of the stake races on the day, the Weah. I'm guessing you tipped your hand about this as a race where you're going to want to take a stand, and I think I boringly like the same horse as you, but I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, we talked about the team that Chad has with Elite Racing, with Liz Crow and all those people who help him find these types of horses. I believe Liz was involved with this one, Santa Monica. They found her over in England and brought her over here, and she's won two races and ran well in the Sheepshead Bay where she was beat. I thought she ran really well in the Dance Smartly. It's funny. I need to look a little bit deeper in this because I remember off of my my brain that pace wasn't very fast, that it was slow, but Timeform has the first 2 calls read.
I think that maybe the clock was wrong. Remember, because there were other issues with the timer that day because wasn't that long on value?
There was, but our friend Craig Milkowski, who does a phenomenal job vetting those situations, I think he's aware that there's time, and he was hand timing some of those races. So if his figure says it was quick early, that it probably was.
Okay, that does. I mean, I don't want to say it diminishes my interest in Santa Monica, but it does diminish my confidence a little bit.
Changes a little bit. You know, I'm not going to – I probably won't run to the ATM at this point, after seeing that. But I do want to be allowed – I'm going to single A her for sure and maybe have some savers on some other ones. Mom's on Strike obviously ran huge at Keeneland, ran well at Belmont. And so I'll use – but for me, I'm going to try to get out of there with Santa Monica.
We should explain that a little bit. And as for those who are new to the show, we talk a lot about Timeform US, where we really love to see the horses that were able to close well into those blue pace lines, those slow pace lines. It shows that kind of quality and will speed to be able to get up without having the setup. That's something we like to pay extra attention to. It's not necessarily trying to separate true contenders from horses who were, you might say, flattered by the pace, who just kind of plugged along. I don't think this one plugged along. I think this one finished up well, but it would be that much more appealing with the blue pace line instead of the red one.
Yeah, it'd be much more appealing, but at the same time, I just think she's probably the most talented one in here. I just think she's a good horse, and so I'm gonna try to lean here with Jose up. And Chad, at Saratoga, what more do you need?
Let's get it done. Let's look at the last race, the finale, a rare nightcap. I love to see this, and definitely it's going to draw someone like myself all that much more into the picks on Saturday. Haven't had a chance to look at the race yet from a handicapping point of view. What'd you come up with?
They did it for your birthday, I think is what they did. 2 horses that I'm definitely going to use, Conquest Panthera and Ball of Rocks. I think both of those horses have always displayed some talent. Ball of Rocks, I think, is on a good day, is almost a grade 1 type.
I love Ball of Rocks.
Ran second in the grade 1 in the Maker's Mark Mile, was beaten 3 lengths in the Breeders' Cup Mile, ran third in the Shadow of Turf Mile, third in the 4-Star Dave. This horse is a quality type running against kind of a listed stakes group. So he's one that I think you definitely want to keep your eye on. But Voodoo Song, I tried to beat. And if you look at the races since Saratoga, last run at Saratoga was September 2nd. Has won
that was
twice.
Such a painful day.
It was. Has won twice since then on other days, on other racetracks, where I thought this one was kind of a Saratoga inner track bully. And ran well outside of Saratoga, now comes back to Saratoga, I think could be extremely, extremely tough on the front end, especially if there's a little bit of give in the ground. That one's going to be forward. Hasn't run well in the soft. At Hawthorne didn't run well in the soft, but likes this.
Why did you say especially if soft then?
I just feel like if you're going to be forward, I think forward horses have an advantage in those situations, especially the kind of – not the ones that go 24 and 49, the ones that go 23 and change and they open up. Now they have horses that are running on unsure ground. They have the horses that are further back than they need to be, who can't quicken like they could have quickened. All these – you take a lot of variables out of the picture when you kind of open up on them.
Interesting. I don't normally think that way about Saratoga soft turf, but in the case of this horse – I'm just done getting eliminated by this horse after getting my teeth knocked in so many times last year. That's my man Todd Newby running the water in the background, just to explain what's going on. JK didn't have an accident or anything. Anything else? Did you look at Del Mar at all?
I didn't. I know they're running the yellow ribbon, but I hadn't looked yet.
Right.
I took a little bit of a glance to see if there's a horse I've been looking to bet back, and nothing's popping out at me at the moment.
All right, we're going to call it then. If you see anything, tweet it. We'll give people a reason to follow along at our various adventures at the Paddock Bar. If you're there this weekend, come and say hi. Always good to get a chance to talk to listeners. And just blank JK. Just pretend you've never seen him before and just come talk to me. We'll troll him up that way, and we'll get that done. All right, that's it. Thank you, Producer Craig. Thanks to Travis for his excellent voiceover. Willie Nile, of course, for the theme song. For more of his music, check out willienile.com. We will be back on Tuesday. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatale. May you win all your photos.